Hey folks, just a quick heads up that all episodes of the Film Nuts podcast contain heavy spoilers and some strong language. Nothing too crazy, but make sure there's no one with sensitive ears too close by. And if you like what you hear today, please consider becoming a patron of the show. You can find links to that page in the show notes, or you can visit patreon.com/filmnuts. Okay, anyway, please enjoy the show, and thank you so much for listening.
We are going to put together the largest peaceful protest in the history of this nation.
How big?
100,000 people.
Just watching it, I felt like I was watching myself. All the things that he had to do was doing, all the people he's talking to, encouraging, yelling, fighting, crying, like all the emotions. Yeah. I was like, I know this life. If you want to be inspired, if you want to be jolted, you want to learn what it takes, what people have gone through to break barriers, watch Rustin.
Hi, I'm Taylor, and welcome back to the Film Nuts podcast, a show about why we love what we watch. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy your time here. I mentioned at the end of our last episode on Midnight Mass how the idea of community has become really important to me throughout the run of the Film Nuts podcast, as well as in my life in general. Community, in air quotes, has become kind of a buzzword in recent years. But don't let that detract from its significance when it's used in earnest. When we find the people who really get us, who represent our ideas, and who help us grow, that's something worth fighting for. Sometimes Community is a niche film and TV podcast like this one, but other times it can be something bigger, like a human rights movement. The Netflix original film Rustin, starring Colman Domingo, tells the true story of activist Bayard Rustin as he helps change the course of civil rights history by orchestrating the 1963 March on Washington amid rampant racism and homophobia. Rustin is a movie that details all of the hard work that goes into massive community organization, and because of that, it was a mirror for my wonderful guest today. Crystal Taylor, aka the Queen Curator, is an entrepreneur, community organizer, and event curator whose own journey she saw reflected in Bayard Rustin's efforts. Crystal feels that portrayals of figures like Rustin can push us to serve and better our own communities. Crystal and I chat about finding purpose, cultural events that can bring people together, and what it's like being on the cover of magazines. I sincerely hope you enjoy this episode because they won't teach you this stuff in history class. Here's Crystal Taylor talking about Rustin on the Film Nuts podcast. I mean, this is an award in itself, being on the cover of magazines here. This is so cool on the cover of North Carolina Central's Alumni Magazine.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about everything going on in this picture. You're in a field, looking gorgeous as always.
Thank you.
You're working on feel like a million different things right now.
Feels like it.
Yeah, and I feel like if I asked you to talk about all of them, we'd be here for 2 hours.
I can give you a short...
but I do want to focus a little bit on, we're coming up on the 8-year birthday of Beats and Bars. It's 9?
9.
That's so awesome. So
yes.
Tell me a little bit about what that's like going on the 9th birthday of Beats and Bars Festival.
A lot of coffee, obviously, and stress, but excitement. Mm-hmm. I'm very proud. We've known each other for how long? Since 2015?
Yeah, I think 15 or 16.
Yeah, and at that time I did not know what I was doing, and I still feel like now I know what I'm doing. But it's like I'm breaking over. Mm-hmm. I'm really getting into the crease of it, which is crazy because like for 9 years you've been doing something, and then you think that you got it good, and then you finally like, oh, this is how it goes, kind of thing. But I'm excited about it, and I'm very proud. And it's like to do something for 9 years consistently, and I've failed and made some bad mistakes and learned from it, and been depressed for like 6 months for it. And this festival is like a child to me, and it's been a road, but it's good. Yeah. It's really good. I'm very excited. This is my first year booking as big as I did for the headliners.
Cool. That's awesome.
Like,
yeah, looking back on I was at the first Beats and Bars.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on that first
You
one.
did the recap video
I did,
for that
I
one.
did the first recap video. So looking from back during the first one to now, how have you seen it grow, yourself grow, as well as like these are like community things. So how have you seen the community grow and maybe embrace it?
I have seen people that came to the first one consistently come every year looking for the conference. I have seen them take what they've learned in the conference spaces and help that use that to help them evolve as creatives and artists. And if I'm not doing it for anybody besides my friends, I'm doing it for those people who really like seek to come. And it's like a running joke in the team meetings. Like, I'm like, I only be thinking like me and like 20 other people are going to come to Beats and Bars. Like, cause you're
like me and my friends.
Me and my friends, cause I'm essentially like, this is why I'm doing all these things for me and my friends to have spaces that would enjoy. Cause we're all cool and we love to do these things. Right. But to see, the city sponsor it, the state sponsor it, Coca-Cola, just people, corporate companies like step up and say, hey, I want to support you. Here's a check for this, or how can we give you access to certain things? It's like very overwhelmingly like I have so much gratitude for that. Because literally it's just me saying I want to do this thing and everybody's like, okay, cool, it sounds great. And it's all the things that I've stayed consistent with, making sure the festival looks like things that I care about, and I think my friends care about too, that they're affected by, and things that are important to them. So even from having childcare available for people, because I'm a single mom and Mansa is gonna need to be somewhere attending something, and so to be able to remember it from day one to now, and to see how new people come around every year for it. People that have been watching it for years are still coming for it. People love the t-shirts. Like, it's just stuff that I don't even think about, but I do remember through the process of planning it and stuff. So I have grown a whole lot in the sense of recognizing that it's bigger than me. It's about my community that I'm serving, and it's also about the culture, protecting it and making sure that every aspect is lifted up. And also killing the narrative that hip hop just looks like something for Black people. Making sure that I'm opening up to my Spanish and Mexican, Latino family, white people, people that don't know where they fit in the race spectrum, just people who love the culture in general and want to learn about it and want to be able to come and meet new people just off the strength of love of music and culture, of like even the graffiti and music and dance and all that stuff. So just being able to be more open and learning like what people care about in hip hop culture and not just focusing in on music. So it's been a learning process. Like, I'm being stretched and challenged. Beats and Bars is a very big challenging feat for me, and I have changed so many times. But the last couple of years, going through COVID, was a big experience for me to be able to be humble. I took a loss one year of like probably over $75,000, bouncing back from that and taking in like, okay, I lost this money. It's okay. Like, you're not a failure. Learn from it. I was really hard on myself for that for a while, and it was reflective in the festival. And so, gratefully, my team is able to like hold me accountable for how I'm showing up as a leader, because that's what's going to happen at the festival if I'm not in a good, healthy space. So it's all relative, but it's great. I'm good. I'm happy, awesome. And the festival's happy. Like, it's good.
Okay, so when I asked you about what movie you wanted to talk about, went back and forth a little bit.
We did.
But then when you said Rustin, in my head, I was like, that's so perfect. So I have my own reasons why I believe there's a connection between you and this movie.
Yeah.
But I want to know why you wanted to talk about Rustin.
Dude, I literally, this is I'm sorry, I just hit the microphone. Literally, I watched this movie randomly one night. And I don't get to watch movies often because of Mansa. But I was sitting there watching this movie and I was in awe.
Friend, one of my greatest joys is watching you rise. We need you to lead us into Los Angeles, where we will most vigorously let Kennedy and the entire Democratic Party know that unless they show up for our people, take a stand against segregation, our people will not show up for them.
Yes, yes, yes.
Do this, Martin. Own your power.
I had thought to myself, like, I wonder how big marches and different things, like, who does that? Mm-hmm. Because now I'm in a space of, like, pushing myself into a different space of event curating and producing, right? Mm-hmm. I got a goal to produce the Super Bowl one day. I got a goal to produce a march like that in D.C. or whatever one day. Mm-hmm. And I'm just ended up watching this movie. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching the movie and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is how it happened. Mm-hmm. Like the March on Washington, right? And just watching it, I felt like I was watching myself, you know, and all the things that he had to do was doing, all the people he's talking to, encouraging, yelling, fighting, crying, like all the emotions. Yeah. I was like, I know this life. But I was just amazed at how just watching what I do happen in that way. And it was just very inspiring. And then the next thing I know, I get a call to help Reverend Barber organize the march on the Capitol in Raleigh. Oh, yeah. Wow. So right after I watched this movie, I said to myself, man, I want to organize something like that. Right. And I get a call, literally, like within a week. Wow. I got a call. And I was able to do that, like within months. Man. Isn't that crazy?
That ain't some serendipitous shit right
I'm
there.
I'm telling you. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know what? It's in here. Mm. You know what I mean? Like, if you're already in the path, like, you just got to be like, I want to do what, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah, that's the kind of vibe I'm on.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, so, like, when you said this movie, I was like, I watched this movie, I think, back in February, and thought it was really good. And sometimes these movies about historical figures, biopics, sometimes they kind of follow the same formula. And, like, that's a little bit in here, but I had no idea who or what it was about. Yeah. And there's a lot of energy in this movie, too. Like, there's a lot, it's like quick, it's serious, but also funny. Like, there's also some really interesting dynamics. And there's a lot of community and collaboration. It's amazing. Yeah, it's really solid.
But that is like true to life. Yeah. Like that movie is solid. Like if you followed me for a day, for a week, like that movie is exactly it.
The scene where they're first coming up with the ideas about the March on Washington, I was like, I wonder if this is what Crystal's meetings look like.
It's insane. It's so true to life. Like I'm just not gay. Even me not being gay, like the relationship stuff, like going through a breakup or going through a partner that's just like, you know, hello, you know, all the things. Like life does not stop lifing. And for us to be able to see his life personally and also his life as Rustin, like in the business and dealing with like this person that I love, this thing I'm going through, people know, they don't know, whatever. And then being in the boardroom, fighting for this, that, and the third, and then telling your team, blah, 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 and dealing with the emotional roller coaster. It's so true to life. Like, it is. And I just absolutely love that movie so much.
Yeah, I was blown away by Colman Domingo. He got nominated for an Oscar for this movie, and that was super cool to just see that. Yeah. Something that I rewatched it just yesterday. Just in preparation for our chat. And one of the things that there was a quote that came across me that I want to get your thoughts on. So he says in this movie, inspiration untethered from action loses all value. So what are your thoughts on that?
Amen.
First statement. Yeah.
Amen. Like, you know, I can't risk like letting dormant mindset play in, you know, like I thrive off of being inspired. I thrive off of being motivated. I thrive off of positivity and energy from people today. Like I don't waste my time on things that will kill any of that inspiration. Because inspiration comes to me for a reason, to empower me and gas me to do these things, right? And so when you aren't in those spaces or community, like it kills that. It's like you don't use it, you lose it. And so if you have the inspiration comes and it's there, like water that, fuel that to keep it moving, because that keeps the possibility of anything alive. So when he said that, like, it's like, shit, why would I talk to anybody that's not gonna inspire or push or motivate?
Yeah, it's one of those things where like we all know that, but until somebody says it, it doesn't like click.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I was like, he said it in a really eloquent way, and I was like, oh yeah, that literally, like, that makes 100% sense, and it's not even a novel idea. But when it's voiced out loud, it all of a sudden has a different weight to it, and you take it a little bit more seriously when you hear something.
Yeah, well, also people get stuck in negative.
Yeah.
Like somebody can call you and tell you some craziness that's going on, and you're, next thing you know, you're in a phone call for 30 minutes going back and forth about he said, she said, or this conflict or beef or whatever. And it takes your energy back down to a place of like, what am I doing next? Kind of, what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I try to protect myself from those kind of things, because everything that's on me, I have to stay up. And I'm not saying every day I'm like hype and inspired and whatever, because I have to choose to be inspired. I have to choose to be excited. I have to choose to have my energy up every day. And some days I'm just like, I just don't care about anything, and I just don't want to do nothing and just float through. But you do have to feel that inspiration. And then when it's in you and you're waking up every day and you see all these beautiful things here, and you're like, yes, I'm doing this. And then when the award stuff come, it helps even fuel it even more, because you've already, how many people do you know that have these things? Like that that you can walk in their house and see more of that, and that's enough inspiration in itself to be like, I don't know nobody else cooler than me right now. Unless they're, somewhere that you want to attain to be.
Yeah. Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever asked you this question, but what got you first involved in basically like community organization? Was there like an idea? Was there something that you felt was lacking that you needed to see? Like,
so my mother always would tell me, if you see something you don't like, don't complain about it. Do something about it. That's what she would always say. And it started with Girl Scouts.
Okay.
I encountered some girls, young girls, and I was just so disappointed in their behavior. And I saw these girls and I was just like, ugh, yikes. Like they need mentors, And so I talked to my mom, and she's like, don't complain about it, do something about it. And the only thing I knew to do was go and submit myself to be a Girl Scout leader. And I started a troop 1464.
Okay.
And
are they still around?
No, well, we dissolved the troop by the time they got to they were getting ready to graduate middle school.
Okay.
And they just had so many activities, and it was a lot.
Okay.
And I still know all the girls. We have a group chat and everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
And still talk. They're in college and doing their thing.
That's so cool.
It's great. But I wanted to do something and help inspire something, that was different. And so that started that. And then when I recognized how dope that was, I started my business, Underground Collective. And at first, it was just to be able to help shape the culture of what I was hearing, because music changed, took a whole shift.
Okay.
And I wasn't happy about the shift. And I was like, well, I'm going to create a platform where I can meet real artists that are good to keep them encouraged about the music they're making, so they won't make the music that's trash on the radio. So that happened, and then that was going well, and been doing that for a long time, 13 years, and I met Moses Ochola, and he wanted to do Black August in the Park. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea about Black August, what that meant, what it was.
What does that mean? Like that phrase, that idea?
Black August is a commemorative time of the month of August. It is not something that we just in Durham have. Like it's a thing like across the world that celebrates the liberation of Black people. In San Quentin, the Soledad brothers were locked up wrongfully, and they went through this whole unjust prison system. So it is really to lift up the injustices that happen in the prison judicial system. Okay. And so we decided to create a space for people to come, be in remembrance of people that have passed and died and been murdered in the month of August, because it's a very bloody historical time for African American community and culture. And so we created that space for that because gentrification was ramping at that time. And so we wanted to create a space for people to come, Black people to come, and celebrate being free and liberated and safe and in Durham. And so we did that. Me learning about the history. My dad grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and he shared a lot of his experiences. He actually wrote a book that I'm waiting to try to get published, but he shared a lot of his experiences in Alabama, in the 40s and 50s, as a kid. Yeah. So I knew things, but I didn't know like the full like knowledge around Black liberation. And so I contribute that to Moses, like bringing me into the space of like learning that stuff. And so if you're organizing this event, like you need to know about the history of it and what's going on. Yeah. And so that helped me open my eyes to the prison industrial system, injustices that were going on, gentrification, even agriculture racism that's been going on. So Black Farmers Market, happened from that kind of situation. And so, my parents were always very like clear about racism, what was going on, but they also taught us to find your people, no matter what they look like. And that been able to do that, and so, being all this work that I'm doing and learning about all the injustices and the racisms and just the things that were happening in all these spaces, it just helped me, encourage me, and push me to want to be that person to speak up for injustices and unfairness and just creating space to be able to change the narrative and build community of people that wanted to help make those changes happen. And so that doesn't always look like just all Black people. Like you're one of my people, and I have people that don't look like me that care about the same things or are passionate about the same things, and they know what they get as me being their friend and also like ally and advocate. So it's been I love my life. I love the work I get to do for community, and I love that people know what they get when they're calling me to help them do something. Because it also means that they're really intentional about changing the narrative and where their workspace is. Like when they want to do something for community, when I say community, Black people, they're like, we don't know how to do this and we don't want to mess it up. So will you help us do this and not mess it up and create space where we can build community properly? Yeah. And either I will or won't, depending on what kind of conversations we have going forward, because I have to know the person and make sure their intention is right. So it's been fun. It's been great.
So sorry for the interruption, but I will be brief. I am so grateful that you decided to listen to the Film Nuts podcast today. If you are enjoying what you're hearing, please consider supporting the show on Patreon. With a small monthly amount, you can get access to behind-the-scenes goodies, early access to full episodes, and you can vote on what movie we watch the first Monday of every month on the Nut House Discord. The Nut House itself is free to join and is full of other film and TV lovers, so you'll fit right in. You can check out info on all these things in the show notes. And if all of this sounds like a bit too much, that's totally okay. But if you want to keep up to date on all of our episodes, please be sure and subscribe on your favorite platform of choice. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave a rating and review so we can get in front of other awesome people like yourself. Okay, enough of me rambling. Back to the good stuff. Like I said, when you wanted to talk about Rustin, I was like, that makes so much sense for Crystal. Like the community organization, the collaboration, like trying to just get all these pieces together and balancing everything. What do you think that this movie says about the potential and the power of collaboration?
Oh man, like it's inspiring. Like it's, I have walked into spaces and been terrified to ask for collaboration and support. Just being like a Black woman and not knowing if it made sense or they would like it or if they would just be like, no.
Right.
But I found my way before watching the movie, but then watching the movie was even more inspiring and invigorating to be like, no, just go.
What if we flood the offices of every member of the House and Senate with delegates of church, labor, civil rights, and such numbers the legislative branch will cease to function?
Write it on the wall.
No, it is impossible to train that many effective lobbyists.
No. Do not kill an impulse before it's born.
What if instead of lobbyists, they were constituents from their respective states who refuse to leave until they've been heard?
Now that's collaboration. Write it on the wall.
It helped me figure out how to do it in more strategic ways, and also motivated me just to be like, don't care. Like, if you want to see something and you find people that agree to wanting to see that, like, this is how you can tackle it. This is how you go and just do it. And it's kind of interesting because during the pandemic, I wanted to do movies and a lot for, community because there was something going on. People couldn't go anywhere. Yeah. And I called Adam Klein. At the time, Adam was with American Tobacco Campus. And I was like, hey, I need a parking lot. And Adam is, again, one of those allies and friends that doesn't look like me, but helps create spaces. And like Michael Goodman, too. Like, these are friends and advocates, but also allies that will help create space to do these types of things for community. And we made the connection with the Durham Bulls and had a great conversation. And I was unapologetically clear about, like, what are your efforts to bring community into the ballpark? Like, what are we doing? At the time, DEI was becoming to be a hot slogan.
Right,
And so I was just like, what are you guys doing to make sure people are here, make sure community knows it's a safe space, things of that nature. And they didn't really have, a plan or a concept at the time. So it made sense to say, hey, Crystal, bring your community into this space. So they know it's a welcome space. This is something that we're doing, a special event thing that we can collaborate on a community member with. So those types of things have happened and just skyrocketed my, ability to be able to connect and build those bridges. So hopefully if somebody else comes along, they want to do it, they can be open and okay with doing that kind of thing to build for a community. So it's cool. Like, I love it. And that movie contributed to my gas to want to keep doing that stuff. So, again, like, it's out there now. Like, people know, like, you call Crystal if you want to build bridges and you want to create space and you want to advocate and do it the right way and find out what community wants or what they don't want, what they won't respond to versus how to do this the proper business way. People have learned that I'm sitting on the fence. So I can be business Crystal and street Crystal. So it's fun.
You can be in both worlds. Yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah, and it's cool. I enjoy it too.
That's awesome. So one of the interesting things upon the second watch for me watching this movie was it showcases a lot of issues that come from different organizations fighting for the same cause, but differing on the approach.
Gandhi brought an empire down to its knees.
Would someone please tell this man that this is not India? For decades, the NAACP has been legally leading the charge, and now you're proposing 100,000 black folks invade Washington, D.C. Have you talked to Martin about this?
I lost his number, he lost mine.
Well, Dr. King, who hasn't lost my number, has come to understand that mass lobbying is sheer madness.
Brown versus Board is the crowning glory of this organization. Yet, all across the South, when Negro children sleep, they see whites-only signs instead of their dreams. Counting on the courts to eradicate racial inequity, that's madness.
Have you encountered anything like that in the events or causes you put together, and how have you kind of maybe overcome any obstacles that have come in the way?
Yeah, I mean, my approach is totally not traditional
Okay.
at all. Like,
What is it?
well, you know,
My way or the highway?
well, you know, I believe in building community, like straight up.
Right.
If we can't be cool in the boardroom and like at home or at a restaurant and chilling, then we're just being transactional. And I can't function that way. I don't like that. I mean, I have relationships like that, of course. You know, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But I prefer to have a relationship with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're going to give me thousands of dollars, or if you're going to do something for my community, I want to know that you're doing it off the intention of the real basis of what it's needed for. And also that you mean well. Like, you're just not trying to fill your numbers for the end of year or for that quarter or whatever.
Right.
I do have relationships with people that just want something to get done, and they don't care about how's your mom doing, you know, the fluffy type things. And I prefer to not have a lot of relationships like that, because I really believe that we're all characters in this situation of world. And so, you know, somebody could leave their job as this person tomorrow. So does that mean I don't get to talk to you anymore? And I don't get to work with you anymore? And, you know, and so sometimes, that's what that does mean. But I'm fortunate to have relationships with people that will leave a place, go to another place, and want to shake stuff up at another place and say, Crystal, I'm here at this place. I want to do this at the third. Like, let's do something similar to what we did, you know. And it keeps going. And so I prefer to have those types of relationships. Now, those are not traditionally what you see in the kind of community advocacy work that I do. And some people don't like the way of, like, how I've worked. Like, you know, I build relationships and I go for it. Like, some people don't want to work with white people. Some people don't want to, you know, collaborate that way where they have to change up some of their thoughts or processes. And I'm open to what people want to do and how they want to do it. And I'm open to collaborate with white people that I believe that feel the same notions and desires for their community too. And so I don't care, you know, whatever feels good and safe and right, especially if I get to know the person, then, you know, I move off that. And I truly believe that you can't fake being real. You can't fake what you care about, what your intention is. People can lie about it, but when you talk to a person and get to know them and see, you know, you can hear it, you can feel it. You know, the intentionality and the realness in that. So that's how I work. A lot of times people don't care for that, but, you know, gratefully I don't have long-term relationships with those people. So watching him was reminiscent of that.
Rustin.
Yeah. Like, you could tell, like, who were the people that had his back, and other people were like, get this guy out of here. And I have had my own community, like, say certain things or accuse me of, you know, being self-serving or something like that, you know. So like I said from the beginning, like, that movie is true to life. Like, you got people that look like you that judge you or criticize you. They got people that look like you that love you and support what you're doing. And then you have people who don't that do the same thing too. So, you know, it's definitely an emotional roller coaster, period. And you wouldn't think, like, in my mind, I deal with slight imposter syndrome. A very small amount of it. Just because, there's a very small amount of people who don't get it or are not on board. Very small amount of people. If there's more, I don't know them, and I don't want to hear it either.
Yeah.
But it's discouraging and distracting because it's like there's like over 1,000 something people that are over here like yeah, and you're like no. You know, so it makes
like,
you
why
think.
Are you no?
Yeah, like why are you no? Like what's the problem? But I've learned that it's them. Like whatever's it's an internal self issue, not a Crystal issue or Crystal's work issue. Yeah.
When you were talking about that actually reminded me about a scene in the movie. It's after the information about Bayard Rustin's arrest record from Pasadena comes out, and there's like potential scandal bubbling for amongst the public. But then Martin Luther King Jr. comes out and basically says, hey, he's a good guy. The character of Rustin witnesses this, cries. Have you had someone or a group of some people come out in support of you that really moved you beyond, I really appreciate that?
I mean, to be honest with you, like the Triangle Business Journal, the Durham Magazine, like those are not necessarily spaces that Black people frequent or know about or read. And to be able to get that type of accolade from both of those spaces, I mean, the Deputy Secretary of the State has sent me 2 handwritten congratulations letters.
That's so cool.
I just got a letter from the House Representative last week, congratulating me and saying thank you for the work. And I don't even think I've ever met her before. Wow.
Is that validation, or is that just like a really fucking cool added bonus to things?
I mean, I don't want to say validation because I'm working on like self-validating. Right. You know? Okay. But it's definitely like affirmative, like you're killing it. But it's from people that are not in my community.
I gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's like for me to do this bold, unapologetically, like, you know, Black advocacy for fair community engagement, for fair access, for, you know, me being a Black woman doing things in a white male dominated industry. It's like, oh, wow, thank you. Yeah. You know, because it's very clear, like, you know, if you know me, you know what you're getting. And so for me to be recognized and my company's name being said, Underground Collective, is like a dope thing. Yeah. And so when I get it on these platforms of like the Triangle Business Journal, you know, it's like, man, that is super dope. Like, thank you. You know, and so I just got another thank you card from the Deputy Secretary yesterday. And I was like, man, I gotta buy Stacy something because she is like on it and I love cards, like handwritten cards like that. Yeah. And so she just keeps it coming, and it's more inspiration. That's you know, awesome. Like if the governor and secretary and the deputy secretary, these people, they know who I am, they know what my work is. It's like, okay. Yeah. I'm going to keep it rolling then. You know, good trouble, you know. So I'm going to keep doing it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
So, do you have a favorite moment or scene from this movie?
I think that some of my favorite scenes were when they're in their meetings, when he's with his team, and he's just like challenging their thought, and they're all like, what? You want to do that? And he's like, yeah.
Rochelle, how many bodies does it take to surround the White House?
How many? Sorry, I thought that was a setup for a joke. You literally want me to find out?
Because day 2, we shall surround the White House. Draw the White House up on the board. While serenading the president. Ain't gonna let the president turn me around. Come on now. Turn me around. Turn me around. Ain't gonna let the president turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking. All right.
he was very like unafraid. And he would challenge their thought. And I find that happening with me and my team. I'll be like, well, why would you think we couldn't do that? Or, And so every time he was meeting and you see the whiteboard, well, the chalkboard back there and everything. And, it just reminded me of like how in those moments, like you can inspire a person's mind to go further than where it is in that box. And every time he was in a boardroom or meeting with his team, like it was always my experience of watching that was you didn't forget that he was in there. You heard his voice, you felt his presence, and you were either pissed off or inspired.
Okay.
Depending on the room. Like in the boardroom, those guys are pissed off because he's bold, he's challenging, he's confrontating, being, and in the workroom with his team, he was inspiring, creative, passionate, like pushing the mark.
Yeah.
So to be able to watch him show up in different ways, depending on who he's talking to and how he's what he's presenting, was again true to life. Like, I'm gonna go in this boardroom. I'm gonna tell y'all what we need to do, how we need to do it, and who needs to do it, and who doesn't want to do it. Get out, and then I'm going to go back to my team and say, we're gonna do this, 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 and this, and this, because we're gonna prove that we can do this thing that they don't think we can do. But because it's still fuel. Like you hear people say, oh, that's not been done, and you can't do this, and
don't
why
you
would
love
you?
That? Oh, that's not the way we do it.
Oh yeah,
like, get out.
Let me show you. I take from that. Let me show you.
Yeah.
Like you're not thinking. I'll help you. Just sit right there. I'll be back later, and then to go back to your team and say, hey, boom, 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 and then there was a woman who said, you want to do what? He was like, yes, my dear. He was. Because it's encouraging, like, you didn't think that you could do that?
Yeah.
So, to be able to, because right now, I'm the oldest on my team. Okay. Besides Bishop. Bishop is pretty old, but...
You look good, Bishop. If you're listening or watching this,
Bishop looks great. He looks so great. But, I mean, he has been with me since the beginning.
Yeah. And
so, he is also one of those ones that will stand with me and say, you've done everything else, why not? And so if I know anything, I know I can look at him and he'll be like, yeah, do it. And so to be able to inspire younger people to be like, I had Lauren on my team. God bless her. She's probably the newest of all. And so she reminds me of the young girl that was like, you're going to do what? And so I tasked Lauren with something. And when I reported back the following week, she was overwhelmed. She was very flustered, overwhelmed. And she was like, how do you do all this? And I'm just like, how do you not? Like, do you want it? Do you want to get this done? Like, let's figure out how to get this, Yeah. If I can do it, I know you can do it. Yeah. And so she, had that moment of like, I cannot believe that you have been doing all this. And I just tasked her with the fact that you can too. And it's reminiscent to those moments in the movie where it's like, people don't have it until they can be shown or taught to do that. That was good. That was a bar.
That was a bar. That's a social media clip right there. So I know there's so much going on in this movie, both from like it's a really good movie. It's inspiring. It teaches a bit of history too for those of us who were uneducated about how everything kind of came together.
Yeah.
So how would you recommend this movie to someone who hasn't seen it?
If you want to be inspired, you want to be jolted, you want to learn what it takes, what people have gone through to break barriers, watch Rustin. It's a great movie to make you feel like, man, I'm not doing anything with myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those movies where it's like, man, people are really out here being extraordinary. And it really helps you figure out, like, am I going to be extraordinary or I'm just going to clock in and out?
Yeah.
And so there's nothing wrong with clocking in and out, but, you know, it does inspire, like, the thought around, like, what can I do?
Yeah.
How can I help? You know, what can I create?
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, they might not realize that they need the inspiration. Because there are plenty of people that are like, look, I know what my life is. This is what I want to do. This is what is comfortable and makes me happy. And I don't want to kind of like stray too far beyond these boundaries that I've set for myself. But there are people out there that are like looking for a thing to like get involved in or be inspired with. And I think what you have proven with what you've been doing, as well as what Bayard Rustin has done in like throughout history, but specifically with this movie Rustin, is proving that, what was that quote again? Yeah, inspiration untethered from action loses all value. And so I think you're doing a fantastic job of tethering action to inspiration. So
Thank you.
Really cool. Crystal, I can't thank you enough for joining me.
I'm so honored to be here sitting with my friend talking about movies. I want to come back and talk about more movies.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot lately about the definition of success. The default societal measurements are stuff like income, title, and maybe how many houses you own. But if we pivot that criteria to things like impact, message, and the size of our communities, the idea of wealth becomes more attainable. The kind of wealth measured by the number of people on which you have a profound imprint. With all the folks that Crystal mentioned in our chat about who she's worked with, it's clear she's making a difference. A difference big enough to cement her success in her community. So here's a question and call to action to you. What are you doing for your community? Are you a parent who volunteers at their kid's school? Are you an ally to your marginalized friends? Do you donate any of your belongings to Goodwill? Any small bit helps. So if you think of a cool way to help your community, I want to hear about it. We want to hear about it. Everybody in the Nut House Discord community. You can check out links to that in the show notes. Hop on over. Tell us the best ways in which you're supporting your community and maybe what your favorite movie or TV show is. And before you go, I want to let you know that the next episode of the Film Nuts podcast will be the season 4 finale. It's finally here. It's been a long ride, and we will be discussing the indie classic Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So, in order to not miss out on that episode, please go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform of choice so you don't miss out. A huge thanks to Crystal for chatting with me today, and a thank you the size of the National Mall to you for joining us. If you want to check out all of the events and initiatives that Crystal is a part of, head on over to the show notes for links to those things. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please go ahead and leave a rating and or review on your favorite podcast platform of choice, especially on Apple Podcasts, where if you leave a review, it helps us get noticed by more awesome people like yourself. If you want to help the Film Nuts podcast get even bigger and better, please consider supporting us on Patreon. In exchange, you'll get some really dope perks and behind the scenes access, and in general, just feel all warm and fuzzy inside. You can find links to that in the show notes or visit patreon.com/filmnuts. Our theme this season is brought to us by The Deep End. Our artwork is designed by Madungwa Sibuhudi. Our head of production is Keaton Lusk, and all episodes of the Film Nuts podcast are produced and edited by me, Taylor D. Adams. If you want to get in touch, you can email filmnutspodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram and TikTok at filmnutspodcast. Thank you all again so much for joining us today, and until next time, have each other's backs. Take care and